Turn up the impact, data-driven insights that make digital audio campaigns work harder. Here from Global to tell us how those data insights can work harder, please give a very warm welcome to Tom Streetley and Faye Trinquart.
Excellent. Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us for this session. So I'm Tom. I'm Director of Dax Audio at Global. This is Faye, who'll be coming on stage later on, and Faye's Dax Strategy Director. So last year at Future of Audio, we gave a bit of a sneak peek to a tool that we created called Dax ID. We hadn't launched it at that point, which is why it was a bit of a sneak peek. So this year we thought we'd come back 1 year in action and share some of the insights and findings from our Dax ID conversion measurement tool. So Dax ID is rooted, and the reason we created it is really rooted in an industry challenge. It was one that we've heard many times before, and actually one that we heard at Future of Audio back in 2023. And that was that there was a need for a measurement solution that could work across all of digital audio, across all environments and all devices. Now, the reason that that was an industry need is because advertisers had been used to getting their digital audio conversion insights in silos. So you might work with a radio streaming partner, and you would get your radio streaming conversion insights back for your campaign, and that would be using one methodology. You could then work with a podcasting partner, and you would get your podcasting conversion insights back with another methodology. Because you have two methodologies, they're not interoperable, so you can't really compare the insights between them, and you certainly can't add them together because you then end up with duplicated conversions. And this was something that we struggled with on Dax as well. We were really strong with our previous measurement tool at measuring radio streaming and music streaming, but we struggled with measuring our podcasting and our gaming, and they're obviously two really critical parts of the digital audio ecosystem. That's why we created Dax ID. So the idea was that our partners could run a campaign, measure it across all environments and all devices, be able to look at the deduped results of that campaign, but also then be able to look at the role that each environment and each device plays in driving conversion. Since we've launched, we've worked with a whole host of advertisers that have come to rely on this type of insight, not only for measurement, but also then for optimizations. So being able to make mid-campaign optimizations, but also being able to make post-campaign optimizations. And Faye's going to come up in a minute, and she's going to share a couple of examples of case studies of where some of our advertising partners have done that. So since we launched, we've run 145 campaigns across 65 different clients and across 11 different sectors. So I said we were going to share some learnings on what we found out so far. I'll go through a couple of those overall insights. And as I mentioned, Faye will go through 3 separate client examples where clients have benefited from Dax ID. So one of the things that we always knew was that listening on different devices drove conversions at different times of the day. But because we couldn't measure every single device, we didn't really have the full picture or the full story. Now with Dax ID, we do. So we can see that for mobile listening that then goes on to drive conversions, that actually performs fairly evenly throughout the day. You don't see particularly large peaks or troughs. If you look at desktop, so desktop listening that goes on to drive a conversion through to site, we actually see that perform the highest peak between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. in the morning. And if you think of office-based workers or people that were office-based but now get the opportunity to work from home, that's the window where people normally log on in the morning. It's therefore when, people may be doing some work, they may be reading trade press. It's also when people do life admin. It's also when people may be researching or making a purchase. So we see desktop, the highest peak in the morning. If you look at smart speaker listening, that then drives conversion, that actually peaks towards the evening. So people getting home, putting smart speaker on, listening to their favorite brand, Radio X is mine, or if they're already at home, close the laptop lid and put on their favorite radio station. So that's when we see smart speaker listening driving the highest amount of conversions. If we then look at one layer deeper, so beyond just device data, we can look at device by sector. So if you look at a sector like gambling, that tends to have kind of a fairly short purchase window. It tends to be more impulsive. It tends to be something that people do on mobile. And it also tends to be something that people do whilst doing something else. It could be at an event with friends, whilst watching TV. And we see mobile listening driving the highest conversions for the gambling sector. If you go to the other end of that spectrum, like a highly considered purchase, that's something like professional services. Now we see professional services skew towards desktop conversions. And actually, if you think about it, I've seen multiple bits of research out there that there's still a large number of audience groups that for those high-ticket items, for those heavily researched items, naturally skew towards desktop. And that's what we're seeing in our data as well. And then lastly, if you look at another sector, so take travel, actually we see smart speaker listening driving the highest conversions for travel. Like, I'm sure we all know smart speakers are a critical part of the digital audio ecosystem. They're in the heart of the home. Statistically speaking, they're likely to be in your living room or in your kitchen. And they're a great way at reaching shared listening environments. So people that are with friends, family, their partner, the kind of people that you travel with generally. And so we see smart speakers driving really high conversion rates for the travel industry. So that's a bit of a background on DAX ID and some of the initial learnings we found. And I'll pass over to Faye. Faye's now going to go through a couple of client-specific exampple. That keeps flickering, by the way, which is a bit off-putting.
It's like that. Right. Hi, everyone. I'm going to take you through 3 examples, as Tom said. First up is Monzo. So Monzo wanted to better understand how targeting and device and environment would work for their campaigns. Next up, TalkTalk. So TalkTalk's a really interesting one. We looked at several campaigns over several months and optimized each campaign as it went to get to a astoundingly good figure at the end. And then the third one is BetVictor. So that's where again, very interesting, we were able to look at how real-world events were impacting activity of BetVictor, and then how digital audio budgets could then be adapted to optimize it best for them. So let's take Monzo first of all. So they were looking to target a finance and business audience, and there were 3 things we learned. One was that if in this audience, they really needed to lean into first-party data. So this audience responded best when it was really precise targeting. Second, we learned that the audience were most receptive, surprisingly for me, in a shared listening moment. I would have thought this had been more of like a one-to-one experience, but really we found actually with smart speakers, they were delivering the best for them. And then Tuesdays worked really well. Again, usually it's a Monday. I don't know, Monday admin? It was Tuesday. So overall, the campaign performed well above our benchmarks of finance, which is interesting in itself. But where it really came into its own is when we looked at the smart speaker number. So that more than doubled the conversion rate of the campaign. And finally, when they used their first-party data, or our first-party data, I should say, it's flipped, we saw a 95% percentage point increase in conversions for them. Next up, TalkTalk. So TalkTalk really wanted to understand how their different creative messaging worked across different environments and different listening devices. And as I say, this was over a kind of around 3 one-month campaigns over the course of that time, the campaign measurement period. So we found some really interesting stats. First of all, I'll just take you through them. So podcasts performed particularly well on smart speakers. On mobile, gaming was the most impressive environment. And on desktop, it was music streaming that was delivering the best results for them. But what we found overall was actually smart speakers were delivering 2.7 times the conversion rate versus the campaign average. And gaming was the highest performing environment for them versus the campaign average. But what's impressive about this is actually by constantly tweaking, refining, and optimizing over those 3 campaigns, they were able to deliver a 13% increase in campaign conversion, and that's at no extra cost to them at all. And then the final example for me is BetVictor. So BetVictor were advertising around football matches. That's what they are, football matches. I was going to say campaigns. I was like, that's not the right word. I'm looking for football matches. It will be no surprise to you that people bet when there's a football match on. And BetVictor, of course, knew this, but what they didn't know was how much money they needed to be spending in order to keep being front of mind. So how did they optimize that digital audio budget? So what we did here, you'll see from the graph, oh, that's not worked well. Okay, use your imagination. What we did here is the football balls, they represent football matches. And what we did was map the digital audio site visits versus the football matches. And we were able to then to quantify how much BetVictor were needing to spend to keep delivering the numbers that they wanted to see on their site, which proved really useful when they're doing then their tactical planning for future football games or any other sporting activity where they could apply the same learnings. So in summary for us, DAX ID is a tool that allows you to measure all digital audio environments and devices exclusively on DAX Audio. 1 year on, DAX ID is providing brand new optimizations and optimization insights for campaign planning, and we're able to really identify important client outcomes using that data. That's it from me. Thank you very much.